Hello. I'm hoping you can all hear me. I'm ready here, live with you today. For so, if you can hear me, please say yes in the comments. Okay, I'm just waiting for those responses to come through. Okay, so let's see if you're hearing me. And I'm just going to try and sort out a sound issue that I'm having because I am hearing a bit of an echo. Okay, I can see that from the comments that you are hearing me. That's fantastic. So I appreciate you letting me know that. So, what I'd like you to do now, if you don't mind, is to just let me know where you're joining me from. So, which country are you joining me from? And could you also tell me what your profession is? Okay, lovely. Okay, so let's have a look at what we've got in the comments here. Just waiting for it to all show up. I'm seeing some of them. Technology, huh? Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Okay, I can see that I have some of you joining me from India, from Egypt, from Ireland. Wonderful. Well, thank you all for joining me. And if you don't mind, from the UK too. Fantastic. And I can see that some of you are nurses. That's wonderful. Lots of nurses, in fact. So we've got nurses. Do we have doctors, dentists, pharmacists, any other professions? Okay, hi to you in Nigeria. Wonderful, wonderful. Well, great to have you all here from all over the world. Welcome, everyone. And thank you for letting me know your professions. So, no matter what your healthcare profession is, you will get something useful out of today's session. The information shared with you will be applicable regardless of your healthcare profession. So, hopefully, that's good news for all of you. So I can see we've got a combination mainly of doctors and nurses here with me today. Okay, wonderful. Right, so we've got a lot to fit into today's session, so I think we should get started as soon as we can. I'm just going to share the screen with you, okay? Um, just bear with me one moment while I do that. Okay, right. So now you should be able to see the shared screen. And and as you will know, today we're looking at OET speaking. And what I want to share with you today are some really important questions that you should be asking in your OET speaking role plays. Now, this is incredibly important to know because without it, you're going to be in a position where you're not going to be able to score as high as you could. Okay, so Without further ado, let me introduce myself for anyone who hasn't met me before. I'm Joan. I'm from Ashcroft Medical English. Um, I am a former UK doctor. So I used to work as a doctor in the UK. I am now full-time working as an OET teacher and also a teacher helping guide my students onto the stages beyond passing OET. What I'm doing today is part of my role as an OET All Star. Now, an OET All Star is a premium preparation provider who gives free taster classes on social media for OET here on the official OET channel, and it's also linked to my own personal social media channels too. Now, as an OET premium provider, you can be assured that I have received high quality training, and in turn, that means I can provide you with high quality courses should you choose to work with me. So let's think about performing well on test day, because that's what all of you want, of course. You want to do well on test day, completely understandable. So, in basic terms, what's needed is building language skills. That will mean that you can demonstrate that you are fit and ready for work. And you'll need to understand the test fully. So you'll need some test taking skills. And part of this is understanding the test criteria. So what the examiners are actually looking for, and understanding the format of each part of the test. Of course, practice is the way to improve. So lots of practice will make the difference ultimately, but you need to make sure that you're practicing the right way and not repeating mistakes or bad habits. So make sure you do get help and you do get feedback. So if you're not sure whether you're on the right track, get some help. Get an OET teacher in to help you and get some feedback so you know you're on the right track. If you are looking for some one-on-one support, then just go to my website. You'll see the homepage, which will look something like this, and you can choose to book a trial lesson. You can have a look closer at the services that I provide. If you click here, you'll see that you've got the option to choose from packages and single OET lessons. But let's move on to something that I think you're going to really like, and this is a free guide. Now, there is so much to tell you about OET speaking, and what I have to tell you couldn't possibly be fitted into this 30-minute class today. So what I want to share with you is a free guide so that you don't make some really common mistakes that can damage your score, and I'll give you the details for that at the end of today's session. So in today's 30-minute class, we're going to have a look at the specific questions you need to be asking during the role play to boost your score. We're going to have a look at exactly what those questions are and when they should be asked. Now, I would like the session to be as interactive as possible, so don't be shy. Please feel free to ask questions on today's specific topic. And when we come to doing little exercises in today's class, please feel free to add your answers in the comment section, okay? There is a little bit of a delay in the answers and me receiving your comments on YouTube in the chat box, but I'm going to be trying to keep an eye on everything and answer as much as possible as we go. All right, so moving on, we want to get to the good stuff, how it's actually going to help. So, if you want to score well in OET speaking, one of the first steps is to understand what the assessment criteria are and then fulfill them well. So, in today's session, the tips that I'm giving you relate to the clinical communication criteria. If you do not know about the assessment criteria for OET speaking yet, no problem. Just go to the official OET website and go to this page here, and you will see information that will explain to you both the linguistic criteria and the clinical communication criteria. Okay? So going back to today's session, as I said, it relates to the clinical communication criteria, specifically section E, which is about information giving, how you give information and what you're doing during that part of the role play. Let's take a closer look. Okay, so in the criteria, we can see that you are expected to find out what the patient knows. You're supposed to pause periodically during that process to allow your patient, parent, or carer, for example, to respond. Okay. You're supposed to be asking questions that will encourage the patient to contribute their reactions and feelings about what you've said. You need to check whether they understand, and you also need to find out whether they need more information from you. So these highlighted sections all equate to questions you need to ask during information giving. Hopefully everything is clear so far. Okay, so we're going to move on now to thinking about the benefits in summary. So, in summary, if you get these things right, you will score higher in the test. But most importantly, it's going to mean that you are going to communicate effectively with your patient in the workplace. So, tell me, if you could give me some examples of information you give your patients. So, if you're a nurse, tell me what sort of things do you tell your patients when you're giving them information? And doctors out there, what sort of information are you sharing with your patients? Answers in the comments, please. Okay, I'm just waiting for some of those responses to come through, given there's a little delay, but I think you're all on the right track. Let's see if some of these examples seem familiar to you. So many of you, of course, will be needing to explain a diagnosis, maybe explain treatment options, procedures. The list goes on. There are so many things that need to be explained. So, what you're going to need to do during this process is to break it down with some questions, checking what they know, checking if they understand what you say, checking what they feel about what you've said, how they've reacted to that, and also whether they need more information from you. The benefit of doing this is that you are going to break down your information giving process into smaller sections, little chunks, we could call them, okay? It also gives you the opportunity to check that they understand and more. Like we've just said, there are lots of things you can check. And when you do this, you maintain a two-way conversation and it makes sure that the patient is involved in the conversation and it remains patient-centered. We call this process chunking, so breaking down the information, and checking when we ask the questions. So, in summary, these are the four types of questions that you are going to need to be asking during information giving. Okay, so hopefully that's all clear so far. All right, so moving on then. Now we're going to have a little look at a sample candidate card. Now, this one is specifically for nurses. Okay, sample test one, nursing, but the same principles apply whether you're a nurse, a doctor, or any other healthcare professional. You'll notice that in the candidate card, you'll be given the setting, of course, the background information, and then a list of tasks to complete. Now, the tasks are basically divided into questions. So, information gathering, first of all, and then information giving. And you can see this can be quite a large section. And this needs to be broken down with these questions, these four important questions that I'm talking to you today about. Let's take a closer look at implementing these sorts of questions by first starting with the knowledge question. If we have a look at this specific role play card, this is about a 60-year-old patient. So it says, your 60-year-old patient has type 2 diabetes, which has been moderately well controlled by diet and oral medication until now. However, recently the patient's blood sugar levels have been high. The doctor has decided to commence insulin injections. You're seeing the patient to show him or her how to administer injections. Okay, so this is the background information. And here is just part of the information giving. We're going to focus on this part here. Explain injection giving process. So before you explain the injection giving process, how about we check what they know? So, what would you ask? How would you check what your patient already knows? Can you think of what you would say to them? Please feel free to put your answers in the comments if you can think of a good question to see what your patient already knows about this injection giving process. Please feel free to put any ideas in the comments. Don't worry if it's not perfect, just give it a go. Okay, give you a moment more. Okay, so I'm going to show you some ideas next. Okay, see if your ideas are similar. So we might potentially want to start our questions in any of these ways. Some of these suggestions here are more suitable for this specific example we're talking about. Okay, and some are less suitable. So you have to adapt it to the role play. I can see now some wonderful suggestions in the comments. Now, in some of the suggestions there, what we would need to correct is some of the linguistics there. For example, instead of saying, did you about insulin injection before, we might say, do you know how to give yourself the insulin injections, or have you heard about insulin injections before? Something like that. Okay. So let me show you a little example here that you could try. So anyone like to try filling in the gap here? Has anyone explained to you how could you fill in the gap here? Has anyone explained to you? Here's an example you might answer. Has anyone explained to you exactly how to inject the insulin? Okay, so this gives you an idea on one of the sorts of questions you could possibly ask. So the first step is knowing you need to ask the question, and the second is making sure that the linguistics are correct to make sure that you also get a good score for the linguistics criteria. This is something that obviously is something you can develop and work on in class. It's all a process. All right, so now we're going to move on. We're going to move on to this next question, which I feel is one that most of my students remember to ask, actually. So that's great. So let's have a think about what questions you might ask your patients when you want to check they understand what you've just explained. What do you say? What do you ask to check they've understood you? Please feel free to put answers in the comments. And remember, try not to say this one, okay, if you can avoid it. It does fulfill the criteria in that you have at least checked that your patient understands, but it's a little too direct and it may make the patient feel like they need to respond with, yeah, I understand. Okay, so it might put a little bit too much pressure on them. Okay, so we're going to ask possibly in a less direct way. Okay, so here are some ideas. Okay, I'm going to share with you because I've seen that you've given some of your suggestions in the comments already. Wonderful. I love one that you've got in the comments there. How does that sound? Lovely. Am I clear so far? Wonderful. You've got the idea. You're great at this. Okay, so you can see the examples I've got here, and you're definitely on the right track with this. Another more complicated, more advanced, we could say, way of checking their understanding is to get the patient to explain to you in their own words what you've just said. Okay, so for example, we might say, to make sure that I've explained things clearly, could you tell me in your own words, for example, how you'll take the new medication? Okay, so this is a slightly different strategy you can try. Okay, so let's see how you do using that slightly more advanced strategy. Okay, how would you fill in the gap here? Any suggestions? Please feel free to put your answers in the comments. Try and complete the question. I'll give you a moment more so you have time to type. So, to make sure that I've explained things clearly, could you tell me? Let's see if your answers are similar to my suggestion. There are many ways to complete this. So we might say, for example, to make sure that I've explained things clearly, could you tell me in your own words how you'll inject the insulin? Okay, so this is just one way we might complete this. Moving on then to a quick tip and a quick way of making sure that you do include these check questions, okay? So, to include the knowledge question, before you explain, check what your patient knows. And then after you explain, check they understand. Simple, right? Easy way to make sure you've got two questions as asked, 2 out of those 4 important questions. Okay, so now we're moving on swiftly because we've just got a short 30-minute session today, and I want to just share with you the last 2 questions, okay? So we need to find out how the patient feels and how they've reacted to what you've said. Now, what do you normally say to your patients? Have a think about that for a moment. What do you normally ask your patient to find out what they're thinking, how they're feeling about the information you give them? Here are some suggestions of mine. Okay. You might be saying, how does that sound? Okay. How do you feel about that? Do you think you can do that? So if we think about this question here, how does that sound? earlier on, we had one of you had put in, how does that sound, under checking their understanding. Now, it could be used there, not a bad question, but I think it was even better here. Okay, more specifically, gets their reactions and their feelings. Okay, so let's have a look at filling in the gap here. Anyone want to give this a try? Do you think you can? How do you? Okay, I'm sure this one's not too tricky for you all. So let's see if you got it right. You might say, do you think you can do that? How do you feel about that? Okay. So, move on to the last question, so that we can wrap up today's session and hopefully on time. Further information. This is a question that many of my students also remember to ask, but there's just one thing that is a common error, and that's when they ask it. Okay, so remember, on test day you only have 5 minutes to complete as many of the tasks on the card as possible. So if you try and add this question right at the very end, you're planning to ask it once you've finished all of the tasks. The problem is you might not ask the question. You might run out of time. Okay, so ask it at any point in the role play where you feel like the patient might want a little bit more information from you. Okay, so you might use any of these examples below. These are some suggestions for you. Okay, so, as I said, this can be asked anywhere in the consultation. And in this specific example, we've got lots of things, lots of opportunities, should I say, to ask a further information question, because we're giving so many different types of information here. Okay, so remember that at any point you've given some information, you could consider asking one of these types of questions. I'll fill in the gaps for you for these ones just for speed today. So we might say, in response to explaining the safe disposal of needles, we might say, is there anything else you'd like to know about how to dispose of the needles safely? Okay, and we can see another example here below. So, in summary, if you want to score top marks for information giving, don't forget to ask the 4 important questions as you give information. These are the 4 questions that we showed you earlier on in today's class. Now, I do want to let you know how you can get access to a PDF guide on mistakes to avoid. Okay, to get the guide, it's simple. What you do is you book a trial lesson, and this is a half price trial lesson. Okay, so you're getting a 50% discount on the standard lesson price. And then, in addition to that, when you book your trial lesson, and we focus on OET speaking, so this is an OET speaking trial lesson, you will be given 30 minutes of one-to-one feedback, your personalized class, and the free guide to go away with. Okay, so if that sounds interesting to you, go to my website, ashcroftmedicalenglish.com. You will see there that you can click either here or here to book your trial lesson. Select OET speaking as the option. We'll have the class, and hopefully you'll go away with some really valuable take home advice, plus this invaluable free guide. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining me today. I do hope you found the session helpful. I look forward to seeing you in the next taster class as an all-star here on OET. Don't forget to contact me for any questions, to book a class, to book a free lesson, any advice you need, feel free to get in touch. You can get me at ashcroftmedicalenglish.com. Take care and see you next time.